What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm Warren Thompson, and right now, Marvel Studios has a lot on their plate. They have some pretty big decisions that they have to make sooner rather than later. In fact, they pretty much need to decide what they are going to do with the future of the MCU right now. And here's the kicker. The decisions that they have to make are pretty much going to decide if they kind of completely change their plans for the MCU or stick to the same plans they've had. And unfortunately, yes, this does come for a few reasons, but one of them is definitely because of all of the trouble that Jonathan Majors is in. Now, here on the channel, we try to remain non-biased and neutral about the situation with Jonathan Majors until the court actually makes a ruling on the case. However, that still does cause problems for Marvel Studios, whether he is guilty or not. But there is another key factor that will determine if Marvel Studios is about to do a complete game changer and simply rearrange Phase 5 and Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that is due to the fact that, as we've talked about many times on the channel, Marvel Studios' president Kevin Feige and Disney CEO currently Bob Iger have both come out and stated they are now going to be focusing more on quality and less on quantity. And we knew that the current schedules were going to take a hit, most likely with just delays that we've already seen so far. But now we are at risk of a complete and total rearrangement of Phase 5 and Phase 6, including what we talked about in yesterday's video, the removal or replacement of Kang the Conqueror as the main villain of the MCU. And this may scare a lot of people, and it does, of course, sound scary. However, there are ways that Marvel Studios could get away with this. And there are other villains that could come in and take the spot of Kang the Conqueror, and we'll talk about that in a bit as well. But first and foremost, let's talk about Marvel's timeline. Essentially, Marvel has about a little less than 2 months to kind of get a roadmap of what they truly want to do with the MCU moving forward. And this is because San Diego Comic-Con is right around the corner, Hall H, where Marvel Studios always makes their super huge announcements. And from what we've heard so far, Marvel does have some pretty big and intense announcements prepared for us, or at least they did. But Hall H is the reason that Marvel Studios has a little less than 2 months to make a pretty big decision right now. And like I mentioned, the first decision is to decide on whether or not, one, they're going to keep Kang as the main villain of the MCU, and if they decide that, then two, they have to decide if they're going to recast Jonathan Majors or not. This is an extremely huge decision that will reshape the MCU as we know it. As we learned yesterday, the original plan for Marvel Studios was not to actually have Kang the Conqueror be the big bad of the Multiverse Saga. It wasn't until after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania where they saw Jonathan Majors act as Kang, and of course, this was after his performance as He Who Remains in Loki Season 1. It wasn't until after they saw him give those really great performances that they decided this is it. We're going to make Kang the main villain. However, what this means was they had a different plan before to go forward in the MCU with another big bad. And yes, Kang has already been hyped up, but it's still not too late to do that with another villain. Now, I'll just speak candidly. I'm not saying this is what I would prefer to happen. I actually really love the premise of Kang and a bunch of his variants, not only fighting over the multiverse with the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the other heroes, but fighting against themselves as well. I really like that. However, if the MCU did need a savior to come in, there are characters like Doctor Doom they could pull in. It's been reported and rumored that Mephisto could be coming into the MCU. That's another one. It's also been reported that Ultron could return in Armor Wars, and we've already seen in Marvel's What If what Ultron truly could be, a Ultron who understands essentially the entire multiverse and can multiverse jump. And in the comics, Ultron is known for returning a lot. And I think a lot of fans were really upset that Ultron was kind of a one and done for Avengers Age of Ultron. So I think a lot of fans would be really happy to see him return in a bigger and badder way. They could bring Annihilus in, and if they wanted to truly make a change of Phase 5 and Phase 6, they could bring in the X-Men sooner rather than later. Instead of waiting till Phase 7, they could bring them in Phase 5 or Phase 6 and have an X-Men villain like Annihilus or Magneto come in. I think Doctor Doom is the best option. My only concern about this is Doctor Doom is probably the best Marvel villain. Of course, that is up to debate and everybody has their different taste, but he is definitely one of the best villains ever. I wouldn't want him to come in just for Secret Wars and be a one and done thing. I want him to stick around for a pretty long time, at least least 10 years. At least stay around for as long as the new X-Men and the new Fantastic Four team are going to be around for. But the point is, as far as replacing Kang, we do have options that actually work. And it's pretty easy for a variant of Kang to simply say, well, it's actually not my variant you need to worry about. It's this one person that has figured out our technology who is slowly killing a ton of variants throughout the multiverse. That's the true threat. That's not hard to write in somewhere. Now, if they do go this route, of course, they're going to have to completely change Phase 5 and Phase 6. And they're going to have to change some of the writings of some previous films that they've done as well. Nothing too major, but like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Kamala Khan with her bangle. Obviously, their weapons are some sort of Kang tech. So they might have to somewhat rewrite that a little bit, but still nothing too detrimental. But nonetheless, it would require some changes, and Phase 5 and Phase 6 will need some changes as well. Now, Marvel Studios for Phase 5, well, they're pretty locked in. Most has already been filmed or is being filmed currently. However, Marvel Studios can go in and do some rewrites and change some things about each specific show or movie. In fact, we have just heard that Sacha Baron Cohen was on the set of Ironheart this week doing some reshoots. We've also gotten word of some other reshoots happening for current MCU projects being filmed. And of course, this could be the result of just needing reshoots, or this could be the result of Marvel Studios kind of changing some things to fit their new future for the MCU. The biggest change to Phase 5 would probably be the removal of Blade. We know that it's had its fair share of problems. New writers, new directors, the original script being bad, so bad that they had to throw it away and start from scratch. That means that this has given them some problems, and they'll most likely move it till after Avengers Secret Wars. The movie probably didn't have much to do with the Multiverse Saga anyways. It most likely had to do with the supernatural side of the MCU. Now, Captain America 4 is shooting right now, and the Thunderbolts isn't far off either. Captain America 4 is most likely going to be pretty essential for the next Avengers film, so I don't think they'll be scrapping that. And depending on what story they have written for the Thunderbolts, they could either keep them or move them to after Secret Wars as well. They could kind of be involved with the Multiverse Saga, but again, their involvement in the MCU typically isn't going to be huge Avengers level threats and situations that they need to deal with or help the Avengers with, but mostly dirty government work. The kind of work that the government doesn't want the world to see them do, which is why they have the Thunderbolts. So that could either stay or go. I'm going to say it's going to go ahead and stay. But Phase 6 is where it's really going to start to change. For one, we only know 4 projects in Phase 6. Deadpool 3, which is definitely going to stay, the Fantastic Four, which is going to stay, and we're going to call Avengers Kang Dynasty Avengers 5 now, because this one we are certainly unsure of at this point in time. And then of course we have Avengers Secret Wars. But since Marvel has not officially announced any other projects for Phase 6, this is where they are most likely going to either add some new projects or rearrange what they wanted to do. Now, recently we went over all of the projects that we know are coming at some point in time, and some of those might now have to be pushed back till after Secret Wars, because if they're still going to keep the multiverse, which I'm sure they are, it's the Multiverse Saga, and we're still going to have Secret Wars, then they might have to make other stories a priority, like Wanda's story. Giving us a true Scarlet Witch solo movie could help the Multiverse Saga, because she clearly wanted to know how to jump to other multiverses. She was dreamwalking, and she stole America Chavez so that she could use her to travel the multiverse, but rest assured, she's probably still very interested in learning how to do that herself. And when things start to happen like incursions, Doctor Strange is going to look to her to help. So we might not have gotten a Scarlet Witch solo movie before Secret Wars prior to all of these incidents, but we might now due to them. So there is some positive that could come out of this situation. But of course, they might actually cut some projects we knew were going to be coming, like Black Panther 3. That probably won't involve the multiverse too much. There's also shows like the Wonder Man series coming to Disney+. They might sideline that as well. And if some of the specials that we heard are coming are true, like Nova and Ghost Rider, unfortunately, those might get sidelined as well. The reason is, of course, like we've been talking about, is to make room for other projects they could introduce that help make sense of the new shift in the Phase 6 schedule. Of course, all of these projects leading up to Secret Wars, it's still all going to be about incursions, and there's going to be key characters who have to deal with that, like Doctor Strange and Clea and the Scarlet Witch, and most likely the Fantastic Four. Maybe Marvel Studios decides to get the X-Men involved in Phase 6 rather than wait until after. Fingers crossed they do, but right now Marvel Studios has to make a decision on what they want to do to move forward, and they don't have a lot of time. Their decision could simply make everything stay the same, or it could entirely change the MCU Phase 5 and Phase 6 as we knew it. So now it's the waiting game, but of course, if we hear anything, we'll be sure to do an update video. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. Don't forget to like the video, and if you subscribe and leave a comment, you're entered in our giveaway for a chance to win an Xbox Series X, a PS5, some Marvel Legends items, or some DC items as well. We pick a winner at the end of each month, and the winner gets to pick one item. We also are on Patreon now. We also do have an official website as well that we post to daily, and we have a Discord server if you want to join that. We'll link those in the description and in the pinned comment down below. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.